Well, good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are. I'll show you the most important part of the presentation right away, and that's thank you. Whether you're already well versed in artificial intelligence, whether you're curious, whether you're worried about it, whatever you are, you're here. And I think that is the most important step anybody could take. It's to at least open the curtains and have a look on the other side. And that's what we're doing today. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Earle Hall. I am very grateful to be a member of the board of directors of the International Gaming Standards Association, as well as the Government Blockchain Association. You'll start to see the puzzle coming together. And most importantly, I represent an amazing team at Access.ai in Las Vegas, Montreal, Quebec City, and all over the world. Something you may or may not know about me, I taught at the master's degree level for about 10 years in new and emerging technologies. So if you go all the way back to the 1990s, you'll get the gist of why this presentation has some things in it that date that are actually very current. Something I'm very proud of. I served my country. I'm in Canada today, luckily. So I served my country for 10 years as well. And a very important part of artificial intelligence that I will be pointing specifically to today is the entire aspect of neuroscience. And to make sure that my own research sees the light of day, I have been using the TED organization, that when I find things that are worth talking about, if I get picked and if I get lucky, well, I end up getting to get into the red circle and talk about it. So that's who I am. And today we're going to get into some very exciting things, but I would like to make sure, just to protect the Gaming Standards Association, just to protect the Government Blockchain Association, and my incredible shareholders at Access.ai, everything today is my own opinion. And while I will be speaking about these organizations, I would not want to legally put them in harm's way. So please note that everything that I say today is only my personal opinion. Now, this one's the exciting slide of the day. This one, I am so proud of the board of directors and the management of the International Gaming Standards Association. The team recognized very early on that it was going to be the breakout year for artificial intelligence. And as you'll see later on in this presentation, one of the most important parts of artificial intelligence is not actually what it does. It's what we have to make sure that it doesn't do. So the Ethical Artificial Intelligence Committee, who's headed up by an incredible gentleman aristocrat called Nimish, our team is endeavoring to do with the members of the organization is to put together a framework to make sure that the international gaming industry can adopt standards to exploit everything that's exciting and good, but at the same time, protect ourselves from the bad. So the very first question we have to ask ourselves is, why is AI so important? And the answer to this question is so simple. And really, when you think about it, it's so scary. So the speed of the amount of data that's being produced every nanosecond, I said nanosecond, is that accelerating at a pace that is impossible for humans to even be able to understand, manipulate, correlate, or even make a decision. If you look at every single Tesla car in the state of California in the United States, they have so many LiDAR sensors on them. All of these LiDAR sensors are streaming data in real time to the Tesla cloud. That's just one data point. If you look at everybody on the Amazon site, everybody on Facebook, there is so much data being produced right now that humans have lost the capacity to be able to make accurate decisions based on the amount of data that they're able to correlate on their own. And that's the reason why I'm hoping this presentation that we're all sharing together is a call to action. Why? Because if artificial intelligence is not a core centric part of your business plan, of your organization, and your personal life, I'm very scared of what 2024, 25, and 26 will look like for the individual and the organizations that have not adopted AI as a core value of who they are. Let's start off with a simple decision, a simple definition, for the simple reason is that artificial intelligence, it's math. And this is a funny thing because if you ask 8 people out of 10, they will say, oh, I don't like math. And I wasn't good at math in high school. Well, I'd like to make a claim that it was probably because you weren't taught math the right way, because math is actually very simple if you get away from the way we were taught it. Why? Because artificial intelligence being based on math, it's based on those really cool words in the middle paragraph: patterns, Fibonacci, trends, and associations, things that are like, and of course, the things that move away that are not like. So there's not much difference in an algorithm than in social behavior. People, that there's patterns in traffic, there's patterns of people walking in airports. You can predict trends. So when you get into prediction, the algorithms help you learn before things happen. Now, on the bottom here, I have to start pointing to something I'm worried about in the industry that I'm in, the gaming industry. It's all about the data sets, the quality, the availability, and the accuracy. Because if you understand that we as humans, we rely on food, either material, like meat, fish, chicken, whatever, and we rely on water. Those two elements nourish our body so that we can live and create light. AI, its fuel, its food, is data. So speed, accuracy, depth, all of these things come into factor when you look at, is the AI strategy for my organization, is it viable? Well, the most and really the only thing you look at to start out is what is the quality, what is the integrity, what is the availability of the information to feed the algorithms. So today, 4 quick, easy points to get through. We're going to go through a demystification. I hear a lot of things on the road that I would just like to box in so that you take away these things and not get lost in the thousands of words that people are using to talk about AI. Then we're going to break it down and go into a very micro look at AI itself. And then, of course, well, we've got to dive in and have some fun. So I'm going to choose the tool that I use the most every day. And I'm just going to get into something that I learned in the 1990s, but I'll save that story for a little later. And then, of course, at the end, probably, I know everybody loves gifts. So the very last point of the presentation, I have something for you at the end. So to be able to take off and to create a strategy, we've got to start by demystifying actually what AI is. So the very first thing, and if you notice on the bottom of this presentation, there's actually a hyperlink. This hyperlink brings you to the entire article, which is amazing. It's from this year. Is AI part of our pop culture? Was the question that I asked in the course syllabus, and the answer is resounding yes. AI has already, years ago, infiltrated film. It's infiltrated the car industry. It's infiltrated social media. So, because of the fact that AI is reducing friction, it's making things faster. Well, let's just take it for granted that AI is already well ingrained in so many places that you may not already know. I'm going to give you some examples in a specific slide, but it's already so ingrained that it's already here to stay. That's a given. It's not going away. Now, let's go back to the beginning of AI. Yes, I don't want us to get mixed up in all of the information on these slides. There's 4 of these slides that are going to have red boxes, and I'm only pointing to one thing on these slides, and that's in 1873, the concept of a synthetic. Now, let me get into a distinction right away. You might hear me speaking often about the difference between an organic and a synthetic being or a brain. Synthetic means there's a lot more carbon. It means it's a thing for us, like a computer, whereas organic, it's a they. It's what we'd call at this point in time in the evolution of our planet, a living being. For now, I want to address this in about 3 or 4 minutes. So if you look in 1873, which was a long time ago, Bain introduced the principle of a neural network. A neural network is going to be very important in about 2 or 3 minutes. Now in 1956, John McCarthy starts talking about artificial intelligence and the capacity for machines to mimic and to be able to reproduce human patterns and thought. Maybe at the end, I could attract your attention that there's a lot of things about Alexa that we could get into at this point in time, but in this session, I don't think it's worth digging into Alexa. However, now it's time to ring the bell, or if you remember in school when your teacher used to slam their foot on the floor to remind you that this is an exam question. Artificial intelligence has been around from the 50s. Machine learning really became interesting in the 1980s when we were absolutely capable to talk to machines and have them talk back. But now we've entered into what I'd like to call, with all due respect, real artificial intelligence. It's where we get into deep learning, and we're going to spend a couple of minutes there because deep learning is really the foundation of where we're going for the rest of the 90 minutes we're together. Now, look up on the top left of this slide and please take a second to realize the second word. When we talk about the word consciousness, if we go to religion, if we go to spirituality, if we go to biology, if we go to quantum physics, the word consciousness is something that is outside of the physical realm of the cells. In the 1990s, one of my heroes called Buckminster Fuller actually proved that the neofrontal cortex up here in the front of the brain actually transacts outside of the head. Won't get into the holistic side of this, but when we start talking about machine consciousness, we're going beyond the boundaries of synthetic carbon repetition. We're going into something much deeper. So discriminative AI, and yes, this is the red pill, blue pill. Discriminative AI, these are the 2 things that I want to make sure that everybody takes away and digs in to understand that discriminative AI is just extracting a conclusion from a question, on the data that you already have. So all you're doing is asking a question, it's looking for correlations, and it's bringing you back a response. That is what I'd like to call, with all due respect, primitive AI. Now, the real cool AI and the really, really, really scary AI is generative AI. And that's what we saw becoming popular around the month of May. And why am I pointing towards the month of May? It's because when ChatGPT started to show up on the smartphones, it left the world that was in, and it became a mobile consumer, and I'm going to use the word technology for lack of a better word. So the app on that phone became readily available for people to ask questions like we will in our demo. Now, here is the scary part about generative AI. And once again, this is something I would really like you to take away as food for thought, a reflection on your organization, and the foundation of your strategy going towards AI. Generative AI will take every piece of data you have, correlate it, and make a new piece of data. So it's actually taking what you have, it's doing an extrapolation, it's reflecting upon it, it's making a judgment. Does that sound like a human to you? It's making a judgment, and then here's the important part. It's writing new data inside of the database. Now, why is that important? If you've ever followed a computer course in your entire life, the very first thing you learn on day one is garbage in, garbage out. So before you even contemplate an AI strategy, your number one priority is integrity of data. We're going to get into the next couple of slides on neural networks. That is like the be all to end all for what we need to know today. But once again, if your data is not in real time, if your data is not certified as true data, if your data cannot be certified as clean and not corrupt, you're going to have a lot of trouble doing generative AI. I always refer to the movie Multiplicity, and I know that ages me as a human being, and I apologize for that. But it'd be worth looking at the film to understand. Back in the day when this movie came out, we were already pointing towards this movie saying, yep, that is generative AI when you have bad data to start with. So another important concept that I would like to make sure that you take along your journey, now that we've spoken about discriminative or primitive and generative AI, the second one is the difference between machine learning and deep learning. Machine learning means you have a structured database where everything is in its place. And when you ask the question, more likely in discriminative AI, when you ask the question, you get back a response based on the structure you asked it for. The real world, the conversational world, two friends sitting in a bar, that's a deep learning conversation where the data is unstructured, where the sources of data are heterogeneous. And the result, the predictability of the result goes down. So once again, I'm sorry to keep flipping slides, but I'm building up a little puzzle here. When you're in a discriminative AI, machine learning scenario, your risk of unwarranted, unwanted, undesirable, or scary results is very low. When you're in a generative AI deep learning experience where your data is unstructured, you better make sure that your data is certified as true data, that it's clean, and that what you're generating as automated responses, you can, I don't want to say control, but you can monitor the direction in which the data is taking you. If you notice, we've become very dependent on technology. When your car tells you to go back into your lane, when you get popped up by a technology saying you've got to breathe more, we don't even question if it's true or not anymore. And one of the worries that I'd like to leave you with, so it becomes one of your worries, is that before you even think or you get in, you'll hear me repeating this all the time because as my team knows, when I'm worried, I always repeat myself. One of the worries you have to have, one of the concerns, one of the risks that you have to mitigate is that you have to be totally overboard on making sure that your data is clean so that as you move into generative and deep learning, that your algorithms don't send you into a very, very scary place. Now, let's go back to the beginning. If everybody remembers how all of this started and how NASA really and IBM really did some amazing things in the 1960s, I decided to go to the IBM site, and that's with all due respect to Amazon Web Services. I decided to go back to the beginning, look on the IBM website, and I want to point a couple of things to you, because for deep learning to be true, you have to be looking at multiple layers of data. In other words, the deeper your data set, and if I was to translate into the gaming industry, that would be multi-game. In other words, being able to look at all of the games on a machine playing, whether there's 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 of them, and at the same time being able to look at all of the denominations. So if you look at my matrix, on the bottom, I've got on the X, I've got the games. On the Y, I have all of the denominations, and on Z, I have the player. And the player is a function of what games they're playing or skipping through and what denominations they're skipping to. And I'm going to bring in actually some very quantitative metrics a little bit later on, just to show you how deep learning is expressed in our industry. Now, I'm sorry, but I'm going to read this out verbatim because I really love whoever wrote this on the IBM website was so precise. These neural networks attempt to simulate the behavior of the human brain. Just letting that set in. And I highlighted down below without human intervention. So once again, if you're going into a generative AI strategy where deep learning of unstructured data is going to be your strategy, please remember that your data must be clean. I think I've mentioned that 18 or 20 times. I'll stop now. Now, let's start digging into some of the fun stuff. So just so you know, and like I said, this is an introduction to AI. We're not actually digging in to different types of models, different types of subsets, and all of those good things, or into the mathematics of it. I'm sure that would be a very boring time for us today. But that being said, let's just look at where AI is in your life today. I'm sure everybody gets always freaked out when they go on Facebook. For those of you that had Facebook, I don't anymore. If you go on Facebook, it's going, how does it know that I was here? Well, if you look into your iPhone, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of tracking tools that you thought you turned off, but they're actually talking to each other in your phone and sharing that data so that they can predict the next place where you're going to be. It'd be worth your while to read up on the massive amount of technology inside of Apple Face ID, from very low lighting and very strange angles to be able to pick up enough data points to predict at a very high level of accuracy if it's you. I am actually blown away by the natural language that Grammarly has integrated into their product this year. The jump that they've made, just like MailChimp, just like HubSpot, there's been some major quantum leaps this year with some of the technologies that are out there. And I thought I'd mention Grammarly because it surprised me a couple of times. Although I'll show you what I use on a daily basis, and I've actually just become dependent on it, unfortunately. Alexa, I won't get into the algorithms that are behind that, but if you ever want to research Alexa, it'll take you to the very edge of scary. It's so amazing. Now, that being said, do you remember about 2 or 3 years ago that every time you were using your credit card in a new place, it would get blocked? Have you noticed that that's starting to go down? Why? Because the generative AI algorithms are getting more and more precise on predicting, well, Earle has always bought this type of product. Okay, he's in a new city, but he's buying this product. What's the chance it's hit? Let's wait and see till he goes to the next place, and the next place, and the next place. So they have avatars built inside of the databases. And as long as I'm not skewing outside of the median of my avatar, I'll be safe. But as soon as I go out, well, I'm blocked. So the financial transaction fraud, artificial intelligence models, they're probably some of the most advanced for the very simple reason is the better the model, the less people that they have to have on the phone to go through this when the person gets their card blocked. This one blows me away. I was a transportation officer in the Canadian Army for a while, and the Amazon anticipatory shipping algorithm that says, Earle lives in Las Vegas. Earle always buys these products on Amazon. So let's make sure these products are always in the warehouse, because according to the last 35 purchases that he's made, our guess is that he's buying this next. So can you imagine that the Amazon warehouses have a large part of their inventory that's actually stocked based on predictive algorithms? That's pretty cool. And Netflix, of course, if you ever wonder why you're always getting prompted. And I don't want to talk about Netflix too badly, but I think their algorithms do need a little bit of work, because if you do have Netflix, you'll notice that sometimes you're looking for something that you can't find. And if the model was done according to standard, it would take all of your searches and rearrange in a very specific order so that in the future you wouldn't have to search anymore. But I'm still waiting for Netflix to give me that aha moment. Now, I do have to mention Waymo. This is just so cool. These driverless cars that are going around in Arizona and other places, the amount of data these things are producing is mind-boggling. But the precision of the driverless experience, listen, if you want to look these folks up, and if you want to just, whatever city you're in, please go have a seat in one of these vehicles just for the aha moment. I remember once, many years ago, when Shanghai built the electromagnetic 400-kilometer-an-hour train. I was on my way to a gaming show in Macau, but I had to detour to Shanghai to sit into this train with no wheels. And when they flicked on the button, it came up, and we were just like a human bullet going through space. And I'll never forget, it was one of the craziest experiences of my life. Well, Waymo is one of those experiences. Now, because of the fact that we're in the gaming industry, or there's a lot of people on this call that are in the gaming industry, I would like to point at a few things that are very, very dear to my heart. Number one, if you have a big data set, in other words, your server is not sitting on a desktop full of dust underneath a table or some manager's desk. If you have a big data set where you're looking at data from hundreds and even thousands of client sites, an AML, an anti-money laundering algorithm, it's actually very easy to create standard avatars and go, the person should be cashing in and doing ABC. So if they're not cashing in and doing ABC, why? And according to the location, according to the time of day, according to the traffic patterns inside of the casino, you can very rapidly train an algorithm to start predicting if the person that's putting their money in and the pattern, and I'll get into the specific metrics a little bit later, maybe in about 8 or 9 slides, I'll get into the specific patterns of the data that you can use to create an algorithm that would blow your mind. Proof. I don't know if my chief data scientist is on the call, but about 6 years ago, when we started to write our AML algorithm, for one of our clients, we flicked it on and we decided to test it. And after 10 minutes, we got a phone call, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. We don't want to see it. So that was just a footnote. But once again, in a generative AI or a deep learning experience where you have access to true data that's multi-game, multi-denominational, and the player behavior, the anti-money laundering prediction that you can do would blow your mind. Quantitatively, I'm not talking about theoretically or human judgment. I'm talking about training a mathematical model that over time hits a level of precision that would blow your mind. Now, for anybody that knows me, this is the one where I could spend 4 hours on. This is the one that makes my heart beat. You know, in the world of health and wellness, in the 1980s, we were all trying to prevent heart attacks. We've moved on now to a world where we're trying to prevent and cure cancer. Well, can you imagine if you have the right data set, if you have the right data and precision in real time, you can do predictive player health, which means the word gambling could actually disappear. And it could just be another form of entertainment because the algorithms would be predicting and protecting if the person is going out of a standard gaming experience for their gaming avatar type. In other words, in the last 500 gaming experiences, if I click at this speed, if I use this game, if I use this denomination, if I click faster when I make more money, if I click slower when I make less money, I create a pattern of myself over time. What about if I come in one day and I sit down and after about 5 minutes of playing, I go completely outside of my pattern? What should happen? Well, the very first thing is the algorithm should tag you and go, we have to monitor this person to make sure that they're okay. Maybe I just got excited because I got a phone call. Or maybe I had a really bad day and I'm trying to take it out by beating on the stick to see if the stick can make me feel more worthy than the worthlessness that I'm feeling because I'm having a bad day. So this is where we get into neural networks. And that's the reason why I wanted to talk about cognitive learning. So can you imagine a player predictive health system where you can define what a median is of a normal player, and you will have millions and millions and millions of normal players. And then once you define the normal player, what would be the skew of their behavior that makes them go from normal to at risk? Caveat, this is something that makes my absolute heart beat with guys like Casara, over at UNLV that did his PhD on these things. This is the reason why Access, I'm so proud of my team, is sponsoring now Piyush, who's data mining every single piece of billions of data we have to get to a point where we can create standard avatars. Once you have a standard avatar, how does it work? You have this empty avatar, and as you play, it's like you're shopping inside of a box, and all of a sudden you start to stick to an avatar and goes, oh, well, my pattern of play looks like this. And maybe you jump to another one, you jump to another one, jump to another one. Over time, the algorithms will learn who you are, how you are, why you are, and you will have an avatar assigned to you. So that if ever you come in and you change player behavior pattern, well, you can be flagged at risk. It could be a risk comes up on the screen and goes, are you okay? And you just click on the button. It could flash you up on the screen and go, we're a little bit worried about you. Would you like a coffee and a donut? It could be, you've done this interaction or this behavior 3 times in the last 10 minutes. Would you mind if we chatted with you about it? It could be as much as blocking you out of the machine and saying, we're reserving your machine for 15 minutes. Please scan this QR code, go over to the coffee shop. There's coffee and a donut waiting for you. And we would like you to take a little break and come back in about 15 minutes. So once again, you could create all of these things when you have deep, rich, real-time, multi-dimensional data. Hope this is fun for you because it really makes my heart beat in what I do as a day job. Now I'm going to get into the actual data itself. So our world changed dramatically over COVID. For those of you who have a little bit of snow on your roof like I do, we remember back in 1995 when Alta Vista showed up and all of a sudden we had a white screen and we could type on that white screen and the white screen would give us answers. That's discriminative AI. Then we moved on where we had electronic catalogs and you could look at things and go, oh, I want this. And then you had to go through the most horrific payment process. Hasn't really changed in the gaming industry. So you had to go through this horrific payment process. And all of a sudden, after the market crashed in 2001, all of a sudden, e-catalogs and payment processes and consumers online became a thing. Fast forward all the way to COVID, where everybody was locked down, everybody had to go digital everything, everybody had to go digital payment, digital inventory, digital delivery, everything. We are now in 2024 because 2023 is over, God. We're in a real-time everything world. Listen, just think, when you hold your phone, how much time do you wait before you get impatient and you do this? It's not 5 minutes. It's not, if you remember the good old days of dial-up, no, you don't wait like 15 seconds. It's about a millisecond before you want to throw your phone. So we're in a real-time connected instant gratification world. I want a bonus. I want a rebate code. I want to enter it and I want my rebate now. That's the world we live in. Everybody expects everything in real time. For that to happen, the data, can you even fathom the speed at which the algorithms have to correlate and make decisions for you to give you or not give you something? If you can fathom that, you can realize why I keep screaming at the top of my lungs why the land-based gaming industry is in such trouble. The players in the global gaming industry have changed. This applies to video games. And this applies to your sons and your daughters that are playing video games on their iPhones and their Androids. Even more to them. I'd say I'm more worried about our kids on their phones than I am in people in casinos. And you can quote me on that one. So players have changed. Everybody's global, everybody's virtual, everybody has an e-wallet. Data privacy regulations are changing at the speed of light. I don't think this is the right week to talk about fraud, theft, and hacking. I think I will skip that one out of respect for everybody that's suffering because of that this week in Las Vegas. And whether you know it or not, AI is a part of everybody's life. And I'm really hoping after our time together today, that AI will be an intimate part of your life. Now, this is what I wanted to talk about. Up there in red on the top left, I could have changed CRM for AML or for RG. In other words, I could have used these same metrics, but I would have highlighted certain pieces of data for any money laundering, responsible gaming, but considering whatever industry you're from. CRM, if you saw what MailChimp is up to and what HubSpot is up to, not to mention the 800-pound gorilla, if you have not heard of the company Coveo, C-O-V-E-O, that is part of the Salesforce ecosystem, I highly recommend you Google who Coveo is, because in the artificial intelligence CRM space, they're the gurus. So if you look, just for those people that are in the gaming industry, I would not mind you just looking at these metrics. When we talk about fine granular data, in other words, deep learning, in other words, the food that generative AI uses, you need the amount of money that was played in the session, you need the time, you need the visits, of course. But let's crank it up a little bit. Let's go to a bit of mid-range. How about when a person is changing games during a session? How about when they're erratically changing the amount they're betting? They're going from a 20-minute session of betting 15, 20 cents, and all of a sudden, for absolutely no reason, because the game lose curve is okay, the person just starts slamming all of their money into the machine. What's going on? Or they change their denomination to max bet and they just hit it till it goes away. What is happening inside of their psyche? So the other thing is now if we want to crank it up to expert, how about the number of cash ins during a session relative to the number of spins? In other words, how many spins does a person do before they cash in again? How about the speed at which they click their finger when they accelerate, when they slow down? When they accelerate, they slow down. If you were to study the pattern of somebody listening to music in a car and how they press on the gas pedal, you would be able to measure happiness. Let's take that away. You would be able to measure adrenaline, cortisol, dopamine, and other things. The same thing with these data points. The neuroscience of empirical data is absolutely mind-boggling. So these data points are the foundation of an artificial intelligence strategy in the gaming industry. Now, before we head into a couple of things I'd like to do by me clicking, pointing, and having some fun and showing you my relationship with my synthetic friend, I put in this slide, one, because we're working hard on this on the International Gaming Standards Association Ethical AI Committee. But I threw them in here, and I threw them in for a fun reason. If you look down on the bottom left, I'd like you to realize the date. Take a pause to see if you can remember 2016. Yes, that was 700 COVID years ago. So some ethical issues, I'm going to point out 3 or 4. What happens with the massive amount of entry-level positions that are going to be eliminated by chatbots and other tools? I had the immense privilege to be on a panel representing UNLV in Las Vegas with the United States Chamber of Commerce last month. And it is on Capitol Hill in the United States, a large discussion on what do we do with entry-level jobs? What do we do with driverless vehicles? What do we do with driverless, pilotless ships? How do we retrain the force? Does anybody remember the year 2000 when we put thousands and thousands of people through life-changing programs to learn how to program to get ready for the hoax of the bug of the year 2000? Well, we're going to have to do something simpler. Anybody knows me on this call, you know I'm a little bit cynical. So number 2 is my favorite by far. So what do we do about synthetic stupidity? I don't know. What do we do about organic stupidity? So that one's a really cool one that we got to think about, because if you've noticed right now, the insurance companies are having a field day. Oh, you have technology. Let's quadruple your insurance policies. So a lot of things going on there. And number 7, how far do you think we are away from robots having rights? I'm not going to give you the answer because I actually know it. Think about that one. Think about number 7. Now, let's dig into Act 3, the fun part. For anybody that came here, I hope this is the part that's going to set you on your journey to absolutely falling in love with AI. So I could have picked Perplexity, I could have picked a whole bunch, but the reason why I picked ChatGPT, even though Perplexity is on your iPhones and on your Androids, I picked ChatGPT because it's like the Kleenex. It's like it's the standard tool that everybody's talking about. So I decided to pick that one. Now, time for my boring, you know, when you get old, you like to tell stories. So I'm going to give you one of those old boring stories. So in 1995, when I hung up my beret and got out of the Army, I was very fortunate to be chosen in 1995 to start to teach internet courses. For those of you that don't have a relative position on this, in 1995, we had just gotten HTML-enabled internet. So the gophers of this world were actually rolling into a graphic interface. So the really cool thing is we had the internet in the Army for a long while before that. I won't talk about the 1970s. It was a different infrastructure. But in the 1980s, we had some interesting internet tools. It didn't have all the fun graphics and stuff, but it was internet. So that being said, when I got out of the Army, one of the first privileges I had as a civilian was to start teaching internet. Lo and behold, after about 4 or 5 classes of teaching internet, of which was like pulling teeth from a saber-toothed tiger back then, I got to train an entire television studio. So from the journalists, from the TV presenters, from the people who do all of the news story searching, from all of the writers, everybody, I put the entire TV channel through this internet course. And all of a sudden in 1995, I saw the split. And the reason why I'm taking so much time to explain this, because I need you to have the same aha moment today that I had then, without getting too much into philosophy. What I noticed in that class is that the class was deeply divided between those who were the news researchers, who were constantly looking for headlines, scoops, and who were writing the stories so that the TV presenters could present them, and everybody else. So I was training these people for about a month, and it became very clear to me that because internet was natural for me, probably because it was a lot harder without an HTML screen, but it became very apparent that those that knew how to search were highly performing on the internet. So the thing that I'd like to make sure you take away as the lesson is the value of artificial intelligence is how you ask the question. So what is ChatGPT? I'd like you to give you the real words for it. It's a pre-trained transformer. It's transforming what you're thinking into searching for you, sifting for you, and bringing you back a conclusion that is light years beyond anything that you experience on Google. So we have to learn a new word. If you remember the 1990s, we had internet, then that wasn't selling enough. We needed an intranet, and then intranets weren't making enough money. Then we needed extranets, and then extranets went out of fashion, out of style, and all of a sudden we needed platforms, and it just goes on and on and on. So a prompt is the new word for a question. And now we've thrown the dirty word in there. You can even do prompt engineering. So I'm going to show you what a prompt is, and I'm going to give you the parameters of how to build a prompt, a question. And after that, you can all go build yourself business cards and say, hey, I'm a prompt engineer. So once again, I'll go back to my researchers from the TV channel. They already knew the target audience because they were defining a story that people would not change the channel with. So who is your target audience? In how less number of words can you ask your question? Give it as much context. Now, how do we define the word context? Let's use the 5 senses. Smell, taste, see, hear, feel. Give it context. Give it an example. Like the last time I was out to dinner and I had the most tender, juicy steak ever. So the thing I would like to take away is all my career, I've spent my whole career teaching. And hopefully what you'll see in a few minutes will be an eye-opener for you. But for me, I don't treat a computer as a synthetic object. I treat it as a colleague and a friend. And when you're having a conversation with somebody about something you're passionate about, you describe it. You can almost see it virtually. You can feel it. You can smell it. The more you get precise in your prompt engineering, the more amazing your response will be. And here's an example for you. So this person has written, I would like you to write 80 words, ad copy. That just means something for a publicity or a promotion. I'd like you to write an 80-word publicity for a product that we've given a name called Rocket Growth. And it helps content creators that are struggling to get more followers and to earn money in the first 30 days. So we want to offer them a guarantee. Here's a caveat if you want to write this down. It's not in my presentation. One of the most powerful things that I learned was in 1999 on a writing course that I was doing. It was to learn the 12 most powerful words in the English language, of which one is free, one is discover, There's 12 words that when you use them, you automatically open up the senses of the other person. And once again, at the very end, you see the call to action. Now, let's do this for a few minutes. So I'm going to come off my screen. I'm going to go into Edge. And this is ChatGPT. It is the most boring interface you'll find on the planet. And I commend them for it for the very simple reason it's clean and easy to use. Now, most people that use ChatGPT are using ChatGPT 3.5. In other words, their data is not real-time up to date. I'm going to click over because I have the paid version and I'm actually running a few plugins. So I'm running Web Pilot, and I turned off Keymate for now, but there's an app store down here where, and I don't know if you can see this, so when I clicked on ChatGPT 4, I went down to plugins. It turns on all of my plugins. If I scroll down, you'll see that there's a plugin store. This is the Apple App Store of ChatGPT. And I can plug in when I wanted to do diagrams for me, when I'm doing engineering, when I want it to help me do a very complex thing that I'm doing on the engineering side. There's tons of them in there. I cleaned all of this out just for this demonstration. And actually what I'm going to do for this demonstration, I'm going to leave it on default. So I'm not even going to use the plugins. I'm going to keep it as clean as I can. Now, the very first thing I can do is I'm going to do it the right way, and I'm going to click on a new chat up here on the top left. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. And once again, I use please, thank you, a whole bunch of things. Sorry this, but I can't type and talk at the same time. I really. There you go. So I've just written a command. I didn't do it that precisely on purpose, because now what I want to show you is the prompt engineering part. So ChatGPT, it's doing its thing, and it's doing out a whole bunch of ideas for me. And I'm just going to start typing. I love the first. So I told it I really loved the first one, and now I'd like for it to give me a shot at a press release, please. Now, I did not give it any parameters of the product. And, you can read this. It's actually pretty cool. Because I've been using ChatGPT for long enough, it actually knows me well enough to actually write things that I'd be looking at. So that being said, our app is more than just a tool. It's Rebel. Oh, I like this one. That's really cool. So, sorry, I made a mistake, and I should have said that it is free for the next 90 days. and that if you download it, you will get an Amazon card for $10. Now, if you notice, it's going to rewrite the press release again. Now, this is called prompt engineering, and there's some tools that are at the end of this presentation where I can just keep going, because the thing is, the value of artificial intelligence when you're in a generative AI scenario is that you can keep adding prompts and asking it to rewrite it, asking it to rewrite it. You can ask it to back up. Now, if you noticed about XYZ company, I won't do that here. If I copy pasted in the tagline that we use for press releases at access.ai, and then I asked it to rewrite the press release again, taking into account the tagline, it would start to train the press release to speak the access language, if that makes sense. So once again, if you look at this here, I already have a second draft that's coming along, and I can just keep going and going and going. Love it. Thanks a lot. Can you please translate to Spanish? Now, while it's doing it in Spanish, and like I said, if anybody here speaks Spanish, I think you will be shocked. Thanks. That is awesome. Now I need it in Quebecois, please. So I just threw that in there, and it's just going to wait till it gets to the Spanish version, and then it'll pop over and it will do the Quebec version for me. Why did I ask Quebec version? You will see, because I want you to see something about localization of language, of which the good tools that are out there are doing an absolute amazing job. Now, once again, I'm using ChatGPT 4. I turned off Web Pilot, which is one of the real-time internet plugins for this to go faster. But once again, you have to understand that there is thousands of decisions being made behind my screen in real time, and that's what I wanted you to see. Okay, good. And then it gives its disclaimer. And now I'm just going to do this because I want you to read the disclaimer in the beginning. So I'm translating this into Quebecois that refers to a variety of French spoken in Quebec, Canada, that would still involve standard French, but perhaps have some regional differences in terminology and style. Great, folks. I could go on with prompt engineering for about 7 hours having fun with this, but I have something for you that I'd like to keep going with, being mindful. We have 25 minutes left. I hope that little demo of having just a little bit of fun was fun for you. Now, to get into the library that I would like you to build and start playing with. So I've broken down here with the aid of my friend Miguel from Zapier, different categories, whether it be, let's say you want to build a chatbot for your website. If you didn't know, you can have enterprise ChatGPT and a couple of other different ones. If you want to do content creation, I have Jasper. It's a little bit expensive, but if you are writing a book, Jasper would blow your mind. Video creation, play with it. It'll blow your mind. Most of them here, I've had some fun with. Transcription of meeting assistants. Knock on wood, you should have a look at Airgram. If you've ever wanted a scheduling tool that would blow your mind, have a look at Clockwise. I am déçu. I am not really impressed yet with documents to slides. I do have beautiful AI, but once again, it's not to the point where it reads my presentation or my Word document and it creates something precise. I'd say we've got another year to go yet. Let's get into the sprint, because I do want to get into a few different things so that you have some takeaways. Now, some things that I would like to review with you, and I'm going to come off the screen to do that. Some things that I would like to review with you. Number one, your artificial intelligence strategy is dependent on one thing, if you remember Billy Crystal. One thing. It's data integrity. Before we even talk about data availability, we have to talk about integrity. When you get out of discriminative, primitive AI, and you get into generative AI, where it's not only correlating all of your information, but it's actually writing new pieces of information. You can't have skewed and corrupt data. You can't have conflictual data. I'll give you an example. In the industry that I'm in, 90%, well, I'm trying to be optimistic. 98% of systems do not produce integral data. That means that if you're trying to do generative AI, you either have to spend copious amounts of money on cleaning up the data, or you're just getting bad answers. Once you have integrity, then you need availability. So if your data is written in a proprietary language that's hard to translate into an open source language, if it's closed, if it's on property, if you can't get down and pull it out to correlate it against available databases across the internet, that's the reason why I had WebPilot running. Integrity first, that's the food, that's the fuel. Then you get into availability. They're the two things that you look at before you even start an artificial intelligence strategy to try to propulse your sales, your marketing, your efficiency in your operations, efficiency in your R&D. Microsoft just announced last week that they expect by this time next year that 20% of their code will be written by generative AI. Can you imagine the productivity gain that they'll get? Why is that important? If you talk to any programmer whatsoever, there's a part of their job where it's rinse and repeat, copy and paste, copy and paste. Can you imagine if a tool existed just to get rid of that? Let's talk about accounting. I'm sure everybody here has some exposure to accounting. Can you imagine if you had an AI tool that read your general ledger, read every single invoice that you ever received or that you ever sent, and understood the patterns of how you get paid, who you get paid from, who you have to pay, when you have to pay them, and then it did all of your basic accounting for you. So it did everything, and all you had to do was have it checked by an auditing tool. That already exists. I see the QA button that's up there. I'll be there in a couple of minutes, as a matter of fact. So we're almost there. We're there. So if anybody has any questions, I'm going to click on the QA button. I have a question from, and I'm just looking out to my window to see where Chantal is, because Chantal is in Montreal. Hi, Chantal. I'm going to answer this question live. So Chantal's question is, will there be a list of AI productivity tools shared with us? The answer is wait for it, okay? So if you give me another 5 minutes, and I'm sorry, Chantal, to put you on the spot, but if anybody liked my TEDx's, if anybody likes the way I build presentations, you have Chantal to blame, because she was my TED coach when I got chosen by her to be welcomed into the TED family and do a TEDx. So Chantal, if you give me maybe 5 or 10 minutes, I'll give you the answer to that question. Are there any other questions? And as I skip through the next couple of slides for the remaining 15 minutes-ish we have together, I'm going to keep my screen open for questions. But at the same time, I'm just going to start going through the different slides towards the end because I'm anxious to answer Chantal's question. Jonathan Michaels, how does I'm going to answer this live. How does the industry overcome its technology debt to enable these transformative AI solutions? Jonathan, I'm going to call that the step on the rake question. Well, if you have an on-property server, you're in trouble. So I give the same speech. I feel like Jack Sparrow's parrot. That's an inside joke at Access. I kind of feel like Jack Sparrow's parrot on that one, Jonathan, for the very simple reason is that I've been preaching the same thing for 10 years. Cloud first, big data second, real time third, artificial intelligence fourth. I won't put in the KYC stuff in here today, but once again, if you do not have a cloud data strategy, your AI strategy will have more holes in it than a home in Beirut in the late 1990s. And I say that with a lot of sadness because I saw a lot of those homes. So Jonathan, I hope that answers. Next question. When we use ChatGPT to generate answers, do you have any methods to speed up the process of fact-checking and sources and the reliability? Oh, what a beautiful question that is. So once again, when you use ChatGPT to generate answers, do you have any methods to speed up the process of fact-checking? The answer to that is actually in the question. That's brilliant. So if I had to be doing something like I'm doing research on neuro-linguistical programming, and I want you to give me your opinion on this thing, I'll just ask. Because I'm using ChatGPT 4.0, I'll plug in one of the tools that gives me an actual bibliography. So that there's one called scholarly.ai to be precise, because in what I do in my in my nighttime job, in my neuroscience research, I need to do a lot of peer-reviewed research. So all you got to do is use one of the bibliography plugins, and it will give you anything that sticks close to what you're researching. That's a really good question. Thank you for that question. Chantal, well, you deserve it, so wear it. Is there any other questions? And like I said, while I keep asking these questions, because I have the chat window up, I'm going to go to a soft conclusion. And Chantal, I'll get to the answer to your question. So here's a parting gift from me to you to help you along your journey. So first of all, you'll see here that there's a link that you can click on in this presentation. I have built this presentation for you so that you could take this away, that you can consume it, refer to it, go back to it, and use it as your foundation and your starting point. So I've created a Google Drive with a whole bunch of documents in there. I'll add the presentation in there after we're done today. And you'll not only have this presentation, but you'll have several guides that I like to hand out to people, of people that I follow on LinkedIn, people that I really trust in the space. That's number one. And now I've added in, Chantel, to ask your question, I've added in some of the cool tables that I hand out as well. And up here, when I was talking about accounting, if you're having trouble finding accounting texts, True Wind will absolutely blow your mind. And I could go down through each one of those and point, but once again, I think the value of you coming to this was showing the investment for the 90 minutes. But now I'm going to give you the tools so you just start searching the net, because it's like a pair of shoes. You'll find something that you love, you'll start to use, and it'll become your foundation to become an AI guru. The next one is something that I took out of ChatGPT. My only worry of you leaving today is that you don't know how to be a prompt engineer. So there's several steps. I don't know, there's maybe 16 or 17 steps. So I've actually screenshot them and put them into the presentation here so that you know tone, format, keywords, if you want to put any limitations. In other words, between last February and next June, could you predict to me where the stock market is going to be for Bitcoin, worrying about what's going on in the Taiwan Strait? And you can put in all of this stuff and have a chat with ChatGPT. As if you noticed, I have conversations with my buddy ChatGPT. Oh, there was 22, I'm sorry. You can get into deadlines, who's the audience, being very sensitive to localized or industry-specific terminology, using a quote from a mentor. Hope, Chantel, this is hitting the mark of what you were looking for. I put in 20 tools that I've tried out over the last 7 or 8 months for productivity. There's a couple of in there that are really, really cool. Gamma is something worth looking at if you're a PowerPoint fan, because if you're in Edge with PowerPoint Online, you'll see that they've already integrated AI. All you got to do is write your title slide, and I don't have time to show you that, but as soon as you type your title slide and you click on design, it would automatically bring up themes that have to do with your title slide. If you write your title slide and you write your agenda or your presentation agenda and your points, it will be even more precise what will come up in PowerPoint. I believe PowerPoint is going to be one of the most powerful tools of 2024. And oh, I didn't know that it does on the desktop. I'll post on LinkedIn this week what I'm doing right now, because I'm sure good old Steve Jobs is going to roll over in his grave what I'm up to this week. So here's another one. Here's another list. That is just an opposite list of this one. And as you can see, Gamma's number 6 there, whereas it's down lower on the line, it's 7 in that one. I'm just giving you opposing views from a lot of people that if you're on LinkedIn with me, you'll see that I chat with these people a lot. And when they come up with something cool, I just screenshot it and throw it in my library for whoever cares. That gets me towards the end. So once again, what I said in the beginning, I'd like to say at the end. Thank you very much for showing up. I'm very excited. I'm very enthusiastic, and I don't want this to sound condescending, but I'm really proud of you. Why? Artificial intelligence is to illiteracy what internet was in the 1990s and what learning how to write was in the 1970s. So by you embarking on an artificial intelligence journey today, it will not only set you apart as in the elite, and I mean the elite because you want to get to the forefront of using synthetic humans, neural networks, not only to empower you, but to empower everybody that works and associates with you. And for that, it's been my extreme privilege to invest this amount of time with you. And as soon as we're done, I will drag this presentation inside of the Google Drive folder that I've set up for you. And the good folks at the International Gaming Standards Association that have your email, they will send out this link to you so that you can start the journey to building your own bibliography, if that makes sense, and your own library. And the thing that I hope the most, if this session brought one thing to you, it's you now have the responsibility to share your passion for AI. Because the more you spread the light, the more we'll be able to contain and limit the dark. Thank you very much. Thank you for the International Gaming Standards Association for having the brilliant idea to organize this for its members and the general public. And have a wonderful day, everybody, from the beautiful city of Montreal, au Quebec. Take care.